Hey kids, today we're going to assemble our press here. If you look at our drawing, we have a bunch of parts. I also want you to notice that my own parts correspond with the parts listed over here. So when we go through it, I'm going to refer to these. These are also listed on the parts list on your initial drawing. The parts list is this part right here. These all correspond together. If you didn't name yours right, I highly recommend going back and naming them the same. While it looks like there's a lot of parts here, it isn't too bad. I'm going to start with my base plate, ground that, move to my column. Then I'm going to put my worm gear in here, then probably my press selection, the pin, and then I'll start doing the screws, and I'm going to save this gear and actuator until the end. Sound good? Well, let's get started. How are we going to get started? Well, we're going to do a new assembly drawing. This brings us to our model space. The first thing we're going to do is put down our base plate. That is going to be part 2 on mine. Bring that in. I'm going to rotate this until I get the way I want. Make sure that you have these chamfers on the side facing up. I'm going to rotate this over and place it down. That's our first piece. I am also going to ground this. That just means it cannot move. That's just helpful when we start moving through our assembly so we don't get all out of whack, especially on our planes, which can happen very easy, kids. So that's the first part. Let's place our column down next. It's on the right plane. We are going to constrain this. I'm going to constrain this plane here with this plane. Hit apply. That's going to not keep it attached, so I have to do some more. I'm also going to constrain some edges. I'm going to constrain this edge here with this edge in here. Hit apply. That's going to keep it except for this motion, so I am going to constrain these two bottom parts here. Constrain this bottom with that bottom. Looks like we are going to get an error or an over constraint on this one. So I'm going to do the edge. So I'm going to constrain this edge here and that edge there. Hit apply. And then you can see neither of these are going to move. Why are neither of them going to move? Well, my base plate is grounded. That's that part right there. I think the next part, I'm going to put in part 5. I'm going to open that. I'm going to rotate this around until I get it where I want. That's going to line up in there. Make sure this screw thread is facing down because that's where our presser is going to go into. This one, I'm going to constrain much the same way. I'm going to do this edge with this edge over here. Hit apply. That only kind of locks us in. My next constraint is going to be this plane with this plane right here. Make sure you flip the solution if you need to. Hit apply. Now, this is locked in, moving only in the Y direction. Let's put that little smusher on the bottom here. That is part 7. Open that up. That comes on the right plane for us. This one I'm going to constrain using the center of this axis and the center of this axis. Hit apply. That's going to keep it going up and down. Now I just want to mate this part and this part right here. So I'm going to do the outside of this hole and the top of that hole. Hit apply. Now they go together. My little press is starting to come together, kids. Let's work on this back handle here. We're going to place part 9 or part 10 into there. We want to rotate this so it's in the right way. That lines up there. Place it in. This one, I can use my circles again to constrain. So I'm going to get the axis here. Zoom in, it's a little easier. Spin this one around. And we want to do that one. Flip this solution around, hit apply. And this is kind of mated in this circle part right here, in this axis of turning. Next, I want to try to do this bottom part. Sometimes you get an error with this, kids. If you get an error, it's because this distance here doesn't match up to this back distance here. That means you probably drew it a little wrong. Go to that axis. As you can see, we are going to get an error here if we hit apply, so something isn't right. Let's exit out. Let's do the constraint of the holes instead. So in that one, it looks like my axis, or I had an issue there. That locks that into place now. Look at me getting all out of wax, kids. There's our parts coming along. Next, we have to put the press part in here. Let's load that up. Part 3 is all the way at the bottom here. Make sure, again, this chamfer is facing up. This one, I'm going to constrain using the middle axes again. Make sure you flip this one over. It looks like it's missing. That's only because it's hidden under here. We have to pick it up. It's a little hidden in there. And then we're going to mate or constrain this bottom part here with this bottom part, so that will never happen again. That spins around pretty good. Last thing we have to put in is this plate right here, so we're going to place that in. That is part 6. Rotate it. I'm rotating in every direction I don't need. There we go. Place that. We are going to constrain it through the axis here and the axis there. Flip it over because we need it that way. We're going to hit apply. Exit out of that. Now we're going to try to constrain these bottom holes here. Let's see how well we did at our drawings, kids. Apparently not too well. So instead, I'm going to constrain this edge here with this edge here. I might have this all turned around, kids, to be honest. Sometimes when you get a little out of wax, it's easier to delete the mates and start over. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's first constrain surfaces. That'll probably make our lives a lot easier. So now we know what we're working with. Easy to make mistakes with these. Next, we'll constrain this hole with that hole. Looks like that's not working well for us. Let's try some planes like that. Other solution, hit apply. This is going to lock us into the Y position. And then the final constraint here will be this top piece. Let's try the top edge with that and hit apply. That is now locked in. Let's take a look at this and make sure this lines up. This looks like, well, it looks pretty flush to me, kids. Looks like that's drawn right. Sometimes constraints just be like that. All right. That's almost all of our hardware except for the actuator and the gear part here. But I think now we're going to start putting our screws in. Let's start from this area and work our way around. These first screws right here are a number 8. So let's go ahead and go to 8. Open that up. We will rotate these around until we get to a direction. We're going to need 4 of these. So we're going to place 4 of these. This is going to be a lot of practice on using your centers. So we apply. The next constraint is going to be this part here with that part there. Hit apply. That allows our screw to rotate freely. 1 down, kids. A lot of more screws to go. We're just going applying it. And then mating to the surface. 1 more. And that assembles our plate and our bolts move freely. Let's go ahead and take care of this pin here. That pin is number 4. We want the little press end here to go on the down part because that's getting pressed in. Place that there. We are going to do our constraints just like that. Apply. And then I want to do one final one from here to here. Doesn't look like I got that right. Let's pull this up a little. Constraint this part here to this part here. Hit apply. And now my pin rotates with my press here. Next 2 are my countersunk holes. Countersinks are number 11. Go to 11. We're going to need 2 of these. Let's rotate those in the right direction. The one that's not in the right direction here, we can just go ahead and delete that one. Guess what we're going to do? You're right, kids. Centers. Flip it around. Hit apply. And then we are going to do this inside or this outside part here with this part here. So let's constrain this outside part with that part. Oop, that's not giving it to us. So that must not line up. Let's then go ahead and do the inside part here. The inside of that circle with the outside of that circle. That works much better. Notice that's flush with the surface. Let's zoom out and do the other one here. Constraints again to this hole. Flip it around. Apply. Last constraint is going to be this part here to this inner circle there. And apply. Notice these? Spin around too, kids. How fun. That's holding our back plate in. You can see the screw coming out there. Next, we have to put this chamfered one in. That is part 9. So we're going to go to part 9. Open that up. Make sure we get in the right way. Every way but the right way here, kids. There we are. Set it down. We only need 1. Same thing with this one. Center axes. Apply. And then we are going to mate. Now this one's going to be a little tougher to get to. This inside hole here that hole with this outer part right there and apply. This part too, whee, spins around. That, kids, is almost everything. The only thing we got left is this gears and actuator. Let's put in our actuator first here. We'll go ahead and place it. That is part 12A. We're going to open that up. And if you look at this right here, we want these screws facing out the counter bore, so this is right. We're going to attach this, much like we've been doing everything, our center circles here, like that. Hit apply. Do we have this right here, kids? I think this should actually be going the other way, like that. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter. So we'll apply to those two. The next, let's constrain this right here to this right there. Hit apply. And if you look at it, it's still going to be a little crooked because we have this last hole to do. And if we measured pretty well, kids, this should work out with this one here. Not working out that way, we're going to have to use our hole here and then spin this around. Let's move this up so we can actually see this here. There we are. Constrain that part there to that part there and hit apply. Our actuator is now on. We should probably go ahead here and worry about these bolts, so let's place those in. Those bolts are number 15. We're going to need 2 of those, much like everything else. Constraints, apply. We're going to do the inside part here to the part right there. Hit apply. Same thing here to that one. Apply. One last one here. That to that. Apply there. Our actuator, pneumatic actuator, is on. That only leaves this little last part, kids, for our gear. Now we're going to do this a little different. I am going to bring my gear in, bring in the actual pin, and I'm going to mate that and then use the center axis to do that one more time. So this one's going to be a little different. I'm going to go down to my part here, so I want to open up there. We are not going to do this crescent moon part, kids. We are going to skip that part of the project right now. As I explained in class, it's just a little more difficult than I want to do in this point. We will certainly do tricky stuff, but we'll circle back around to that. If you'd like to try, feel free to. Next, I got to put my gear in here and open that up. Now I got to get these two together. So guess what I'm going to use? You're right, kids. The center axis right there. Now, this part, when you look at it, this little pin should be pressed on this outside here. So I actually want it to go the other way. So I want to mate this part to this face. Oop, does not look like it likes that. We're going to go to this outside part, to this outside part, and hit apply. At this point, I want to put my gear here. I'm going to do a free rotate just to rotate it over. But you always notice what happens when I free rotate sometimes, kids. It gets out of whack. So this means we don't have enough constraints in here. Let's take a look at this. That looks like it's working pretty good. Let's try to constrain this and see what happens. I'm going to use this one here with this axis here. I can flip that over like I want, hit apply, and the last part is going to be to this surface right there, and hit apply. That puts my little gear in, and look, my little gear moves. When we get to the presentation part next, that's going to be pretty nice. Last thing we have to do is put this plate on. That is down here, part 14. Open that up. The curved part should be going in, which it is. I'm going to constrain this outside surface with that surface. Hit apply. It'll rotate around a little wacky, so I'm just going to do one of these holes. So I'm going to constrain that hole, rotate this around, and that hole there. Flip it, apply, and that will lock this in. This will move, screws will move, this will not. But we do need screws on this one, so we have to put them in. These screws are number 8. Open that up. This makes it a little hard to see on this angle. We need to rotate this in the X direction here. We need 3 of these. Final time. Made them into there. Hit apply. We're doing this surface to this surface. Hit apply. As you'll notice, whee, it moves around. 2 more. Here to here. Apply. This surface to that surface. Apply. Here to here. This surface to that surface. Apply. These move. Nothing else does. Well, that's it, kids. That's our assembly of our press here. As you can notice, all of our parts are in. Nothing moves that shouldn't move. And we have all the internal components. Pretty neat if you ask me. Just want to take a minute, kids. Look at all of our listings in our parts tree here. Everything we need to see, we can go over, and it'll actually tell me exactly each mate and what it's doing. So if you ever get confused, you can always go over here. And also, if you click on certain things, it'll take you to those parts too. So if you ever get lost, just remember you can come over here, click, and it'll tell you which parts are which. All right, kids, that's it. That's our assembled press. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. As always, if you have any questions, please come see me. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you draw.